In 1941, when the German army closed its deadly ring around Leningrad, the city found itself trapped between steel, winter, and fate. Roads were cut, supply lines vanished, and millions of civilians were suddenly prisoners in their own home. What followed would become one of the longest and most brutal sieges in human history. But this was not just a military struggle. It was a battle of spirit, endurance, and the unbreakable will of ordinary people refusing to surrender. As artillery shells began raining down, destruction became a daily routine. Buildings shattered, streets burned, and yet life did not stop. People still queued for water, mothers still searched for food, children still tried to smile. The city refused to die quietly. But heroism came at a terrible price. Bakeries had no flour, stores held nothing but empty shelves. The hunger that crept into every home was far deadlier than bombs. Soon, starvation became the most feared enemy. Official rations shrank to almost nothing. A slice of bread was no longer food, it was survival. People boiled wallpaper for the glue. They scraped icicles for water. Diaries describe hunger not as pain, but as a slow fading. Streets grew silent. Bodies appeared in snowdrifts. Yet people still went to work because the city still had power stations to run, hospitals to staff, and hopes to protect. Winter arrived like a brutal accomplice to war. Temperatures plunged far below freezing. Heating systems failed. Apartments turned into icy caves. Entire families slept in coats, wrapped in any cloth they could find. Windows shattered from explosions were covered with paper. Stoves burned furniture, books, even doors. The cold froze more hopes than tears could thaw. And still, every morning, people woke up and tried to live one more day. Hospitals overflowed, not with battlefield wounds alone, but with starvation, exhaustion, and despair. Doctors worked without rest, often without medicine. Nurses fainted while standing. Many continued working long after they themselves were starving. The courage inside those walls was quiet, unseen, yet unmatched. Outside, graveyards could no longer cope. People carried loved ones on sleds, silently through the snow. There were no funerals, only whispered prayers. Cultural life did not die, it resisted. Theaters reopened even when actors were barely able to stand. Musicians performed with frozen hands. And in one of history's most powerful moments of defiance, Leningrad's orchestra performed Shostakovich's Seventh Symphony inside the besieged city. Loudspeakers carried the music across the ruins. It was more than a performance, it was a message to the enemy and a promise to the citizens, we are still here. The city's only fragile hope lay not on land but on water, the frozen Lake Ladoga. Across this ice, a dangerous route formed, later called the Road of Life. Trucks drove through blizzards and enemy fire, carrying tiny amounts of food in and wounded civilians out. Drivers risked falling through the ice with every mile. Many did, yet they drove again and again. Every loaf delivered meant another life saved. Even with tiny supplies, rationing remained strict and ruthless. Bread was weighed like gold. Some families divided their portion into thin slices to stretch the illusion of food. Others gave their portion to their children and quietly faded away themselves. Starvation changed morals, bodies, and minds, but not everyone surrendered to darkness. Acts of silent kindness still existed, proving humanity could survive even when almost everything else was gone. German forces believed the city would collapse. Instead, Leningrad kept resisting. Anti-air defenses fired night after night. Workers repaired bomb damage while half-conscious from hunger. Teenagers joined civil defense. Women took factory shifts building weapons instead of bread. The city was not simply surviving, it was still fighting, and that was something the enemy did not expect. Months turned into years. Children grew up knowing only darkness, hunger, and fear. Streets familiar before the war were now ghost paths between destroyed buildings. Yet in that endless misery, there was also unbreakable resilience. People wrote diaries. They taught lessons to children. They shared stories of life before war. Memory became another weapon, a reminder that there was once joy, and therefore there could be joy again. Slowly, with unimaginable effort, the siege began to weaken. Soviet forces pushed back inch by inch. Explosions were now heard not inside the city, but at its edges. Hope returned carefully, like a shy visitor afraid to be hurt again. And then, finally, the ring broke. Supplies flowed. Roads reopened. After nearly 900 days of terror, Leningrad could breathe again. But freedom did not erase the scars. Over 1 million people had died. The city was physically standing, but emotionally shattered. Yet the world saw something extraordinary. A city starved, frozen, bombed, and abandoned, but never broken. Leningrad did not surrender. It endured, and its story remains one of the greatest human testaments to courage, endurance, and the power of refusing to give up. The survivors carried their memories through life, memories of hunger lines, the sound of artillery, the cold that never went away, and the quiet strength of neighbors helping neighbors. Many never spoke of those days again because the pain was too deep, but history remembered what they lived through, ensuring their suffering would never be silent. Today, the story of the Siege of Leningrad is not only a war chapter, it is a lesson. It teaches endurance, it teaches unity, and it reminds humanity that even in the darkest winters, courage can burn brighter than fear. The city that starved refused to break, and that is why the world still honors it.